Hi guys, I thought I would do something a bit different. As some of you are aware, I am slowly making my way through A Song of Ice and Fire by George R. R. Martin. But because I'm not sure whether I'll be able to read any more of the books in the series this year, um, which is quite sad. During that series, I am kind of doing a vlog every 100 pages that I read, so it just documents my journey through that series. But I recently acquired another book by George that is outside of Song of Ice and Fire because I have a strong interest towards George's work, and also to read stuff that's outside of what appears to be what he's only famous for or most well known for, but the dude has been writing for a long time. So I picked this book up, and it's called Dream Songs. And I saw this many times online. You can get it in two separate volumes, both one and two. Yeah, well, you obviously, but you can get it in this massive collection, which is like all in one thing, volumes one and two put together. This thing is massive. I can throw this at someone's head and it's going to quite easily give them a concussion and a serious bump. This thing is massive. But this is a short story collection of not all, but a good amount of short stories written by George that are obviously outside of A Song of Ice and Fire. So I thought it would be kind of interesting and cool, well, hopefully to you guys anyway, to go through these stories separately. And like my vlogs for Song of Ice and Fire, I am going to be reading and reviewing each of these stories individually in their own separate videos. I've got to put this thing down because it's really heavy. So hopefully you would find this video somewhat interesting. I know that this has the Ice Dragon, which I've read. I've got it as a separate thing. First thing that you read is something called A Four Color Fanboy. So at first I thought, okay, great. I'm gonna get stuck in with a short story. This is gonna be really good. I wonder what George has got to offer. But as I'm reading through this, it talks about a boy that has a passion for writing, and it just happens to have the same name as George R. R. Martin, and he talks about his parents and gives us their full names, and where he, or this character that at first I presumed it was a fictional character, but where this character actually lives. And then the penny dropped, and then I discovered that this isn't a fictional story. A Four Color Fanboy is a kind of real life commentary, which what George classifies it as, in the book, of George's kind of childhood. It discusses about how when George was a small boy in the 60s, and how he had a kind of passion and interest towards comic books, and also with stories. I believe that he um, got or he tore short stories out of a book and sold them for money, which were all horror books or horror stories. And how one of his friends got so scared and had a nightmare, he told his parents, and George got into trouble for it. And how he got into reading comic books, and how he got into drawing at some point. He drew the Human Torch, which was really cool. He drew it for a Zane comic, or a Zane magazine or whatever. It talks about how he was inventing all these science fiction stories and selling them to different zines or these little short comic books, and how they were inspired by superheroes and science fiction. Like for example, there was a story from a perspective of a somewhat alien from a different world, a brain in a fishbowl, and yeah, it talks about his failures. I believe that one of his stories as well that he wrote was rejected 37 times, and he only gave up because he had nowhere else to send it to, which is kind of unusual to actually read something like that from a author as well known as George, because it's kind of really funny that someone actually said no to him. We find out about his successes and his kind of determination to be a writer. And this was in the 60s. He's been writing for a long, long time. And we find out about all the different stories that he's written for these zines. And some of the longer stories that he wrote after these zines, most of them are mentioned in this book or featured in his book. I think there's probably about 3 that aren't actually in this book, which is sad, but maybe George didn't have the manuscripts at that time. There were instances where he wrote stories for all these zines and how he never heard from them, and how he never got his stories back because he didn't make copies of them. But also, improvement in his craft was a big thing for him back then. He never got discouraged when he got rejected, or all these different zines that he was writing for them, deals or agreements never fell through. And also the love and passion for reading comics. As I mentioned, he was a big fan of reading comics as a small boy, and then I think when he was in college, I think he said he kind of fell out of them. I believe that what he did is he when he got first fed up with reading comics, he donated them to a children's hospital. But when he got reintroduced to comic books, I think with the Justice League, he got back into it. So that was a good passion that he had. And I like reading graphic novels and comic books as well. If you do get this collection, guys, don't be put off by the fact that the first thing that you read isn't a fictional short story. That is just a kind of a snippet of George's life, because I feel that these so-called commentaries are going to be spread out all throughout the book, and yes, I will be talking about them separately. But it's nice knowing that or reading about his life. And yes, it did make me think about Song of Ice and Fire, and how it's notorious about never being finished. I mean, guys, it is 2024 right now, and this guy has been writing stories since the 60s, and he's never actually stopped writing. He is so passionate with writing stories, and yes, it would be it would really suck if he never actually finished writing the series. But can't help thinking that especially reading about his earlier about how he got started with writing, that can we just give him a somewhat break from having all this pressure put on him for completing this series? Well, for the time being anyway. So that is A Four Color Fanboy. I do not know why it is called that. unless it mentions it very, very cryptically in what I've just read, uh, I have no idea. Um, but I'm glad that I read it, and I can't wait to get on to the next story, which is a fictional story, which it is kind of nice that in because there is a table of contents at the start of it, and it has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. And at the start of section 1, it has obviously a four-color fanboy, and then it has 3 stories underneath it, kind of like a subsection. And it's kind of nice that all 3 of them stories were mentioned in what I've just read. And I have to admit that every single time a story that George wrote, I was always going back to the table of contents because I was looking to see if it was in this book. And it's sad that some of them aren't in this collection. Once again, I do not know whether, I mean, I doubt that this is all the short stories written by George. This is probably a big chunk of them. There are probably numerous other collections where it has different short stories in each of the collections. But I can't wait to go through this slowly but surely. I do not know how frequent these videos are going to be for Dream Songs. I will probably release the. I've got to keep putting this book down. It's heavy. I will try to release these videos every now and then, kind of like sprinkles throughout my channel. So do not expect them um, very frequently, but every so often I will record one. So yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this video of my explanation of a Four Color Fanboy. Let me know if you've read Dream Songs. Let me know what stories are your favorites, and what ones you enjoyed and what ones you didn't really enjoy. I am excited to read stories from George that, as I said, are outside of Song of Ice and Fire, and also are genres that I'm not familiar with George, such as his sci-fi books, which is I think where he started, and his horror stories, which he didn't do too many, but I'm looking forward to experiencing them. So anyway, I hope you've enjoyed this video. It's more of a laid back type of video than what I usually do, but hopefully there's no problems with me editing this video, because the last video I edited and I uploaded it on my phone. I do not know what happened to the footage, but it didn't show up on my phone, so I don't know what happened there. But yeah, hopefully you enjoyed this video, guys, and thank you for watching, and I will see you in my next one.